what we'll do is we're going to start with the problem. Typically, when you log into the TaxWise software, you'll come to this screen. So you'll have this, and we'll just start a return. We just go to start a new return. The problem I'm going to do, if you want to turn in your workbooks to page 46, it's problem 4-2. So you can kind of see the problem there. So if you got your workbook, 4-42 on page 46. Okay. All right. So we have Rob and Susanna Simpson. So we're going to start by putting in their Social Security number for Rob. He's the taxpayer. So, well, let's back up here. We're going to start with our little question here that they have. There's a little bio on page 45. Talks about Ron and Susanna filed a 1040 last year, but they were not able to itemize. They received a $216 refund from the state. They would like their refund deposited in their checking account. They have information in here for the current tax year. They are not excluding income from Puerto Rico. Little highlight here, Susanna is a seamstress or a dry cleaner. Talks about her receipts there, $752 for her expenses. And Rob received unemployment for a short time last year. And they were neither one full-time students, no EIC disallowed, and the entire family had health care. Okay? So each one of those is a little story about Rob and Susanna. Okay? On the next page, again, we're back on 46. We're going to start putting their number in. So we put their Social Security number in. All right. Yeah, thanks for a second. And all right, so I'm going to have to change it because somebody already did this problem in here. All right. Come on. Okay. And then we enter it a second time. And once the little yellow triangle goes away, that means you got it in there right. So now we're going to be into a tax return, okay? The one thing that you want to remember is that when you get in a tax return, if you see red, it's waiting for information, okay? So this is always going to be the case when we start inputting things. We'll see the little red exclamation points along the tree on the left. We'll see the red squares in the forms that we have and such. So, okay. So we're going to shrink that down so everybody can see it. And remember that we're going to do everything in cap locks, okay? So we have Rob Simpson. Whoops. And I apologize, I'm not the best typer in the world, so I will be backspacing. So, all right. And we have his wife, Susanna. And same last name. You can see as soon as I put her name in there, it's looking for her Social Security number. All right. The line for the mailing address, use that if somebody's married and somebody was deceased or somebody passed and the money's going somewhere else. They live on 38 River Street. Okay. And I just use the local zip code here. I know it says your state. We got to make sure we get that email in there. Very important, because if they call and need a copy of the return, really that's the only way that we can get it to them, because we cannot fax it to them. Okay. We have their phone numbers. Obviously, in this day and age, most people don't have a home phone or daytime or evening. They just have a cell phone. But we're going to get all the phone numbers in there. All right, and birth dates will go in there. We have 2/25, 1986 for Rob. And his wife Susanna is 5/27/87. All right, that's some thunder. Okay, hopefully we don't lose power, but it's pouring rain where I'm at. So, all right, taxpayer's occupation. Transcriptionist there, and we have, we have her as a, we'll just call her a seamstress. We won't do the domestic engineer, better known as a homemaker. For those of you that are domestic engineers, the salary has been calculated to be $233,000 a year. All right, so we have married filing joint. So we'll check that. Again, this area with the taxpayer information, really the only time we'll use it is if there is a date of death of somebody on the return from the previous year, or somebody filing on the return passes. So if you have a married couple and one passes, you put that underneath there. Or it could be just an older person that lived and passed. We put that in there, and then we put whoever receives the refund. In this case, we have married filing joint. We have no dependents. We'll talk about when we do dependents later. Okay. Once we get to this section for the state information, we're going to enter New York is going to be our state, so that it, once we enter that, as you notice on the left, New York State's forms popped up and populated our tree. Okay. Obviously, it gave us a whole bunch of more red exclamation points, but that's the way it goes. Okay. We're going to do e-files on the returns. As soon as we do that, then a whole bunch of other stuff pops up. Okay. Fee collect, that's where these 3 exclamation points on the tree on the left are red. That's if somebody wants to take their fee to do the return out of the refund. We're not going to do that right now. We'll do that later when we talk about the offices. Okay. On this one, they have an M&T bank account, and put in their bank account because they said that's where they wanted their refund should they receive one. Whoops. I missed a 2. Sorry. Got ahead of myself. And so we have that in there for them. Okay, so we got the bank account. Most other stuff will be the defaulting for it. Okay. Down at the bottom, the PIN number that we're going to give, their sign in there. I always just use their zip code. Okay. Put in the date. It'll show there for that. Really, you only have to type in the 16. You don't have to put the 2016. It'll put it in there for you. And then you have to do it for the spouse. This is their electronic signatures. All right. They don't have to memorize that PIN number. This part about identity verification, New York may start to require that everybody have a driver's license to file a tax return or a photo ID. That way we can validate who they are. Same thing with the IRS. They may start issuing 6-digit PIN numbers for everybody, secondary to their Social Security number. They feel right now Social Security numbers are not secure enough or unique enough. All right. Down at the bottom, we'll put in, the first time you do this, you can put in your initials, all right? And you'll put the date in there. You can fill out your name. Pete, and just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 spaces there. And then everything else will be there. Next time you do a return, the computer will remember that, so all you have to type in is your initials and the date, okay? So we have everything in there. This little spot down here, sometimes you can put a little message in there. It says, thank you for coming to EG Tax, or thank you for using, EG Tax service and put your name or whatever it may be. But that would show up on the return. Okay? So now we're going to get into the return. What I want you to get in the habit of doing is every time you start the return, I want you to go to the 1040 page 1. Okay? That is really what's going to drive everything that we do. Okay? Because we have the income section, we have the adjustments. We've been doing some work and talking about the non-refundable credits. We've been talking about, refundable credits that are down here in the payments. But everything that we're going to do for forms is going to be driven off there. Okay? So if we go back to page 45 there, the first thing we have, it says that they filed a 1040 last year, but they weren't able to itemize. So if we go down to the little box in the middle, it says, did you itemize? Well, we found out from Rob and Susanna that they did not, so we're going to say no. Once we do that and we find that it's no, we'll see that our little box here for our taxable taxable refund for the state does not light up. If I had it as a yes, it turns red because it knows I need to put something in there because I itemized last year and I have to pay tax on my state refund. For this problem, it's a no. So we're going to get that out of there. Okay? Second bullet point on 45 there, we got their direct deposit. We're going to get into their forms. Don't worry about the Puerto Rico. We'll talk in a second about Susanna's little seamstress business, the unemployment we have, and everything else will take care of itself. Okay? Last bullet point, the entire family had health care the whole year. That's where the little thing on the left, the ACA worksheet, comes into play. So we're going to click on that. All right? The first question on that is going to be, did they get insurance from the marketplace? Well, on our little bio sheet, it says that they did not. Okay? So we're going to do no. Because they did not have any missing months of insurance, we don't have to worry about the second question for the exemption. We'll do some of those a little later on. And then basically, we just have to check the box that says that they had insurance for all 12 months, no penalty for the year. This is that shared responsibility where people would have to pay a penalty. For 2016, that penalty could be up to $2,000 for a household of 4. Okay? All right. So, if you take a look, I got it pretty clean now. I got all my little red exclamation points gone. So we're ready to start adding information. So we're going to go to page 47. All right. Navigation-wise, we have some options here. Okay. I'm going to go back to my 1040 page 1. As you can see on the left right here, I have a W-2. I can start my W-2 there. All right. I could go into my tax return. Knowing that the W-2 goes on line 7, I can highlight that, hit F9, pops up all the options. I can see my W-2 there. Or all the squares have these little things that says to navigate, these little gray boxes. If I hit that, okay, takes me right to my W-2. Okay? So, typically, I'm a big tree person. I'm going to go over to my tree. Okay? Now, I'm in my W-2. This one is for Rob. He is the taxpayer. They're the first name on the return. We're going to check his box. Always confirm that the address on the W-2 matches the address in the return. We're doing that to verify that. We'll come down to Rob's W-2, put in his EIN number off the W-2. All right, and obviously this one was in our system. If it is, it'll fill it all in for you. If it's not, you'll have to fill in all the squares, okay? In this case, for his transcript job, we have his income. We have his withholding. Okay? So we enter those, and you can see that everything else is calculated for us, okay? The other two boxes we have to pay close attention to is box 12. Box 12 is typically where we'd see somebody that has a contribution to their 401k, or they have a health savings account, or it shows their health insurance. The codes, if I go into that box, I hit F1, I can open up a little help screen here, okay? And does everybody see the help screen okay? Okay. So we have that help screen for the W-2. I go down here. All right. And as I go down here, I have my explanation of box 12 codes. When I pop that open, you can see there's a whole bunch of different things that those codes can be. All right. Most of the time, the ones you're going to see are a code D for somebody to contribute to a 401k, or an E for salary deferral. As I said, the other one that you see a lot of times is if somebody has a short-term disability payment for non-taxable sick pay. And then we also have, we see quite often the ones where W for contributions to a health savings account. But obviously there's a lot of codes for that. This one we don't have anything, so we don't have to worry. Over in box 14, excuse me, one other thing about 12, anything in box 12 tends to flow to a form, okay? So right now we don't have to worry about that, okay? In box 14, we have a 414H. That's a state retirement account. This individual doesn't have one, so we're going to get rid of that, and that will get rid of our little red. Now, the one thing I will warn you on is we just did a lot of work right there in front of you in the boxes 1 through 14. However, out of sight, out of mind, doesn't light up red. Down below is where we put in the state tax withheld. So sometimes people will skip that or forget it because they can't see it in the screen that they're working on. So always make sure you go down below there, okay? At the bottom of this, we'll talk about some of these later about statutory employees, and the big one that may come up for you depending on where you're at, the minister's income. We'll show you later on when we get into that section about how to do calculations on that, okay? All right, so we officially got our first W-2 in, all right? You can see up in the little blue box up in the top left corner, it's one of my favorite things for my clients. It basically tells them, and they sit and watch and ride the roller coaster with me to see what their refund's going to be, okay? So we have a refund up there, all right? Now, down at the bottom of page 47 is a little miscellaneous income. Miscellaneous income can go on to the form. It could end up on line 21. So we're going to go back to the 1040 page 1. And if we take a look at the miscellaneous income down here, right in this category is where it could go. However, because this miscellaneous income is non-employee compensation and it's over $400, we have to show it as self-employment, okay? So we're going to go up to line 12 on our tax return. We're going to go over to my box. Just so you know, the green numbers mean you could put something right in. Yellow numbers mean that they're pre-calculated. Well, in this case, we're going to go up to my little box. I'm going to hit my little link to the right. It's going to pop open a box for me. And because we have income greater than expenses, and the expenses are less than $5,000, we're going to use the CEZ for now. We'll talk about the Schedule C later when we get to the self-employment section. All right, so we have our CEZ. We're going to click on that, pop it open, and as you can see, net profit for business. This one is for Susanna, so we're going to check the spouse. Once I check the spouse, you can see it changes to Susanna's name. Here in the use this form, business expenses of less than $5,000, we know that. Cash method of accounting, that's what she's doing. She has no inventory, okay? She's not showing a loss, and this is her only business, okay? And she has no employees. She has no equipment. I don't know that she's depreciating a sewing machine or anything. And expenses, she doesn't use her home. She works there, okay? So everything that's there. So we're going to put in here her principal business is a seamstress, okay? Again, business codes. We can hit F1. Takes us to a nice little thing. It says click here for a list of business codes. For those of you that are bilingual, you can make them in Spanish if you'd like to. All right. We can go in there and we can look up whatever services she may have. Right now, probably going to do on her other services. We're going to put her in dry cleaning laundry services, okay? Because that's where she's working. So we're going to use 812320, all right? Used to be, if you didn't know what they are, you could just type 99999 in there. IRS kind of frowns on that, okay? As far as the business name, she really doesn't have anything. She doesn't have an employee identification number because she's working for somebody else as an independent contractor. Don't worry about the business address unless it's something that she has maybe a storefront or somebody's renting a space and it's a different address than what's on the return. This question here that's in red, did she give anybody a 1099? Say that she was paying her sister $500 to help her, she would issue her sister a 1099 and write yes here. In this case, it's no, okay? Now, gross receipts, this is her income. This is where the 1099 miscellaneous comes into play. If I go to my square, I hit my little link, I can see a 1099 miscellaneous show up right on the screen. So I hit OK to select that. And now I have a 1099 miscellaneous that looks very similar to the one on the bottom of page 47. Again, spouse. All right. She's getting this from Sammy's Dry Cleaner, which 16765. All right. And we're going to put Sammy's Dry Cleaner in there. Okay. And this is from 34 Roosevelt Avenue. And again, everybody's living and everything's in Amherst, I guess, okay? You can see from box 7 that her non-employed compensation, 45, 45, 22. The machine will round for you, okay? So we have that. That's pretty much all we're going to put on the 1099 miscellaneous. That's all that's on there for, okay? After we do that, we're going to go back to the Schedule C, and we're going to go to the next line. If we look at it, we have total expenses. All right, so back on 45, it said that she's a seamstress. She was reimbursed for all of her travel expenses. Well, if she wasn't, we put her business miles in there. So say that she drove 100 miles, okay? And it would calculate that it's $58. And then you can see it lights up in red, so we'd have to take the $58 up there, okay? But in this case, since she's reimbursed, she does not get to claim her miles. She does, however, get to claim the $752.21 for the supplies that she was not reimbursed for. So we're going to put that in. That shows her net profit, $3,793, okay? So that bullet point off of 45, we now have that in. All right, we're going to turn over to page 48. That we have some interest, okay? Some interest income. We're going to go back to 1040, page 1. All right, and again on 48, we have that interest income. Interest income goes on a Schedule B, but does not go on the Schedule B. And for those of you that just go, what did he just say? Okay, it goes on a Schedule B, but not on a Schedule B, and I'll explain why I say that. We always know that interest, we're going to go to our line, we're going to go into our field to enter the income. We're going to see a Schedule B that says interest and dividend income. In this case, we have a 1099 INT with interest on it. Once we open up that form, you can see in the top left here, we have our Schedule B. We do not want anything on this form. What we want to do is under interest, we're going to go into the line. We're going to click on the form, and then we're going to go into the new interest statement. That's going to give us this little worksheet. And if you notice, a lot of things on this worksheet are very similar to what we see on our 1099 INT. Okay? So we're going to type in the name. All right. And we're going to type in that this is interest on savings bonds. It says box 1 or 3. Remember from last night, I talked about the fact that some interest is not taxable on the state side. This is the case. Okay, First National Bank says we got $1,200 from interest on U.S. savings bonds. Since that's the case, we're going to go on our estate adjustment. First field, we're going to put a negative, because we can see this little plus and minus, and then we're going to adjust it by the amount, okay? So this means that what we just did makes it taxable on the federal and tax-free on the state. We know that we did it correctly by, if I go down on the tree and I go to my New York 201 and I scroll down a little bit, you can see here subtractions. We're subtracting interest income on U.S. government bonds, $1,200. So you can see that that $1,200 was subtracted from my income on the New York. Okay? All right, so you can always check what you did there. All right? So back to my Schedule B, and again, if you notice, I'm navigating on the left by going right to my form that I was on before. All right? Now, the other thing that's on here is I had federal income tax withheld. Well, if you look over here, it says federal withheld. I'm going to put my $400 in there, okay? Then that, everything I just did there will flow to my Schedule B and flow to my 1040, all right? Now, these columns right here, NAEOB and AMTPAB, obviously they're all capital letters. They must stand for something, okay? Not going to have to do a lot of that. But if you want to read about them, if you go into the field under NAOB, okay, hit F1. Again, that's always going to be our little thing to give us this little help menu. We can kind of scroll down through things. All right, there was a state adjustment. I have my NAEOB. Nominee, accrued interest, exempt interest, original issue, amortized bond issue, and then we also have here that is bond interest from a private activity bond that is subject to alternative minimum tax. For those of you that are going, holy cow, I don't know that I can remember all that, don't worry about it. Every document you get will be coded, okay? So it will be coded with where you need to do. What you just need to do is make sure that you get the right code. If it says that there's exempt interest, you just need to know you put the E there, okay? So you now know where to find all these on there. So that would be the case if I had exempt interest on an investment, I could just put E and the amount. This I know is exempt from the state, but I might have some exempt interest from the federal. Well, if this $1,200 my interest income is supposed to be exempt, I can then put E, $1,200, and it takes it off the federal, okay? But you don't have to be a stockbroker to know all this stuff. It will be on the forms that come to you, okay? So we've done that. Let's go back to our 1040 page 1, okay? And the last thing we have is that Rob had a little bit of unemployment. All right, so if we look, we're still in all these income sections. So we're going to look, and here on line 19 is unemployment. Again, go right into the field, click on the little link. We have a 1099-G. That's what this document is. So we're going to go into the worksheet. We're going to click OK. And here we are inside of 1099-G. Again, this is for Rob. He's the taxpayer. The field for this one, it is from your state Department of Labor. Okay. And it will give the number there for it. All right, and unemployment benefits received, he got $1,400 from box 1, okay. He had federal tax withheld of $140. And he had state withhold of $75. Okay. Oop, and come back here. There we go. Okay. And you got to make sure you put the state in there. Okay. So we have everything there. All right. So if you look, we're going to go back up to our 1040 page 1. We're in good shape. We're going to kind of go through things. We see we have our income from our W-2. We have the interest that we did on that 1099 INT. Didn't have any dividends. Here is the self-employment from her little seamstress job. It's called business income or loss. Here we have the unemployment compensation and nothing else on that. So we add that all together. There's their income. Here is the earned income from the earned income credit we talked about. But there is their income. All right. So down below here, what happens with self-employment is that little money that she made up top of $37.93, she has to pay her Social Security and Medicare tax besides the income tax on her tax return. She doesn't have a paycheck, so it's got to be on the tax return. Just as your employer, if you're a W-2 employee, gets credit for paying the Social Security and the Medicare to her, so does this, okay? We have here that she gets half of that tax, $268 is a credit. So the adjustment to income, they take it off her income. All right, that comes up to the top of page 2. We have itemized or standard deduction. In this case, they don't itemize, so there's their standard. The exemptions, there was 2 of them on the return for $4,000 apiece, so we got $8,000. Taxable income, as it says here, and this calculates it for you. We use the tax table to calculate their tax. Okay. If you look right here, self-employment tax. So there is that number, and that is the Social Security and Medicare tax that she has to pay on her profit from her little seamstress job that she got a 1099 for. So we have that. Here's the total of the withholdings and the tax. So when it's all said and done, they have a refund of $180. Okay? And again, we have the information that they gave us. We have to enter that a second time. Okay. And that is going into their checking account. We put the account number in there. Okay. And if you look, my tree's clean. With that exception, we'll always have that little exclamation point with the price. Okay. Now, we're going to head to New York. All right. So in the beginning of New York, one thing is they track for demographics, and that's why it's in the problem. We have our county of residence is Erie. They're in the Orchard Park School District. Okay. Again, we don't know the district number. If anybody wants to know their school district number, I think they typically put them on the property tax bills anymore. But we're going to go to our F1. Up on the left, there's a little tree. I'm going to open it up, and you can see right here, counties and school district codes. So once we have that, we go to Erie County, and we scroll down a little bit. Oops, look past it. There we go. Orchard Park. We can put in our 468. Okay. The next question down, do you have any financial accounts located in a foreign country? I guess your question to them is, are you hiding money in Switzerland or the Cayman Islands? Okay. If it is no, you put no in there. All right. Okay. So we have that. All right. Page 2 of the 1040, you can see federal income, adjusted gross income. That's exactly the same of everything that we just did on the federal return. We don't have any additions. We talked about the subtraction. We don't have to pay tax on that interest income on those U.S. bonds. So we have our standard deduction. So we have taxable income. We have a tax bill of $2,200. And tax withheld, $27.29. That's what was withheld from our paychecks. So they have $529 coming back from the state government. We want to electronically file this just as we did the federal. We're filing a tax return. And in this case, because we're doing direct deposit, we can check the first box because they want it deposited in the same account. All right. And that is a personal account. And again, They're very worried about people sending money overseas. So they ask, is this for direct deposit? Is the account located outside the United States? Okay. I guess if you want to have fun with somebody and have immigration and customs knocking at their door, tell them that they're hiding money offshore. All right, so we have yes on that, fills in everything. And then the last thing, again, this is a credential that you'll get later, but for right now, just put in 1 through 8, okay? All right, so we are all set. A couple little things to clean up. This is for electronic signatures, all right? And this one, New York State wants us to verify, even though they're the ones actually paying the unemployment, they need us to verify that that is correct, okay? So we have that. So we've done our first return, all right? Piece of cake, right? Okay? And again, I'm recording this so you'll have this to go back and you can find your little spots and say, how did he do that interest? How did he do that unemployment? Okay? So we'll have all that, all right? All right, so we're going to close that one out. And I'm going to have you go to page 184. The next one we're going to do is problem 14-2 for a gentleman named Mr. Greg Fellows. Okay? So we're going to do 14-2. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and get the Social Security number started here on it. All right. We can see from the information there that page 184, 14.2, Greg filed at 1048. As soon as I see that, first thing I know is he did not itemize. So I got that question answered. Refund is he would owe electronically. So he wants to do direct deposit or however that is. So you have information sheet. The only thing that's going to be unique here is he would like to see if he qualifies for the New York renter's credit. We'll talk about that, okay? He didn't disallow any earned income credit, and they both were covered by insurance the entire year, okay? So we're going to get Greg in here. All right, and Greg is living at Lisbon Road. All right, and again, everything's in Amherst because that's the zip code I'm using. All right, and we have his email, which I'm having trouble typing tonight. Okay, we have a couple phone numbers for him. He does not have a cell phone, but he has a home phone and a work phone, so we'll put those in for him. Okay, and Greg's date of birth, he was born 12/12/79. Okay, we have his occupation, he is a logger. Okay, all right, now we're to his filing status. If we look in the bio sheet there, okay, under the dependents under 19, there's a Greg Fellows Jr. And then if you look a little farther down, his marital status as of December 31st is single, divorced, okay? Since it looks like he gets to qualify the child because the child was in his home for 12 months and is his son, all right? What we do is he's not going to file single, okay? All right. Okay, so he's going to do head of household. All right. So he will apply for head of household. Down below, we're going to put in Greg. Oops. Fellows Jr. Okay. His date of birth is 1/16/2006. All right. We have a Social Security number for him. And we have, it is his son who lived with him for 12 months. And it's his child that lives with him. Okay. Now, if you think about the questions that I just answered going right across there, sound very familiar to all those tests that you're asked to do about dependents. Okay. We have a name. We're proving age. We're proving a citizenship because he has a Social Security number. We're proving a relation. We're proving his months in the home. So we're proving residency and relationship. This case, too, if you look there under the DC, that stands for dependent care. We're going to check that. Okay. Equally, the earned income credit, we're going to check that. If you notice, the child tax credit is yellow. It was already calculated. Okay. If I show that he is not my son or any of the other fields, you can see the child tax credit goes out. So just as we talked about the child tax credit, all right. Oops. Oh, by the way, kind of picked it up there. MX, that's Mexico. CN is Canada. Don't worry, you don't do any of those. Okay. All right. Okay, so I have everything there for him. We're going to go down, again, New York. All right, our tree lit up on the left. We have an e-file. We're not going to do fee collect. We have his bank information. Okay. All right, and as we scroll down, again, a lot of this doesn't pertain. We're going to put his PIN in. I just used the zip code. We have the date. All right, no spouse, so we don't have to worry about anything there. And again, if you watch, if I put my initials in, then everything filled right in for me. Okay. All right, so we got everything in on our main info sheet. We're going to go to 1040 page 1. Remember I said I want you to always start there. You can see at a household, Greg Fellows Jr. We know since he's filing a 1040A that we have he is not itemizing deductions. Okay, so we have everything in there. Now, first thing we're going to do is go to page 186, and he's got a W-2. So we're going to go find a W-2 on the tree on the left. Take us to that form. We're going to put in it's Greg as a taxpayer. His address looks good. We're going to put in the EIN number for Logging Town, USA. All right. And yes, that number is wrong in our base. So we're going to put this under Logging Town, USA. We have that at 34 Salem Range Road. Okay. And again, we have his wages of $19,568. Okay. Tax withheld. All right. We take a look at the W-2 for box 12 and 14. We don't see anything. We're going to get rid of our 414H since he doesn't participate. Down at the bottom, again, out of sight, out of mind. But we're going to go down there and put in his, okay, his state withholding. All right. The other document we have there is the Child Independent Care Credit. Okay. We know that to be a non-refundable credit. So we go to 1040 page 2, non-refundable credits, line 49, form 2441. All right, I can get it there, or if you notice on your tree on your left, because you checked that box with the DC, I have a 2441 with my little red exclamation points. So I'm going to go. Again, shows up right there that I need to complete this because I checked the the box on the main information. All right, so I open that. And since he's a logger, of course, his son is going to be at the Wilderness Daycare. Okay. All right, and it's on 98 Wild Street, just where you want your child to be for daycare in Wild Street. Okay. We have our information. In this case, we have an EIN number for the daycare. And we have the amount paid, $2,100. Okay. That $2,100 is paid there. We go down below. All right. We have to say how much was paid for Greg Jr. It was also $2,100. Okay. So the form calculates, just as we see in the chapter, based on his income's part of it. All right. But we have the percentage of his income. So he gets a credit of $672, but for some reason he's only getting $231. Well, if we go to our 1040 page 2, we can see here he only had a $231 tax bill. Okay, so you can see the tax. Non-refundable credits, they're the Pac-Man credits. They only eat till the tax is gone. So even though he would have got more, he only had to eat up his tax bill to get it to 0. Now, on the New York, if I go to my New York 201 page 4, we can see that it is a refundable credit in New York. So we look at our dependent care credit, he actually gets $739 on New York. So despite the fact that you think he might not get much and maybe it's not worth it on the federal, always do the child and dependent care, because on the state it may get you a lot more money. Okay? All right, so we have those two in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clean up our form a little bit. ACA, okay, we know that the ACA, that they had health insurance. So we're going to check that they did not get it from the marketplace. They both had insurance all 12 months. So we're going to check those, okay? Now, earned income credit. I have some questions to answer here. And this is where the earned income credit, and that's why we have the chapters in the order we do, because you need practice on this and you need to understand answering these questions. Does the taxpayer have a Social Security number that allows him or her to work in the purposes? Basically, this is proving citizenship. And as you notice, if somebody has one of those that's stamped not valid for employment, probably means they're not a citizen. Okay? So we're going to say yes for Greg. All right? Next question that we need to answer, was the taxpayer a non-resident alien for any part of the year? No. If you're not a citizen of the United States, you're not going to get this earned income credit. All right? Could the taxpayer be a qualifying child of another person? Basically, that's saying is Greg claimed as somebody else's dependent? No. Okay? As we go down here, we got some questions on little Greg, a qualifying child. Is the child unmarried? Or is the child unmarried and can be claimed as the taxpayer's dependent? If little Greg was married, but he's still on dad's return, okay, so the child is unmarried. Did the child live with the taxpayer? Yes, we proved residency for over half the year. Did you or the taxpayer know of any other person who can claim the EIC? We're going to say no, but if we knew that somebody else could try to split it, we might say yes there, okay? Does the qualifying child have a Social Security number? Yes. All right. Now, this is where that question comes into the bio that you keep reading and you wonder why it's in there. Was the EIC reduced or disallowed? We know that it's no from the little bio sheet on 184. Okay. All right. So we clean that up. Now, we're off to our 8867. This is the form, 4 pages. And this is your responsibility to show that they qualify for the earned income credit. Based on the things you've answered, a lot of these questions are already filled in. But we're going to go to the pages that are important for you, because this is your due diligence requirements. Okay? And I'll explain why in a second. So, due diligence. Did you complete the form based on information by the taxpayer? Well, yes, we got his information from the taxpayer about his son, qualifying child, that he lived with them, everything like that. If a qualifying child was not the taxpayer's, did you ask why? Well, you know, if you thought because the last name was different, you said, you know, but this case does not apply because it is Greg's son. Did you ask this taxpayer any additional questions that are necessary to meet your requirements? Yes. Okay. And did you document? Well, most of the time now we do document because we need to have something that shows residency and relationship. Usually the best thing, a report card, because it says to the parents of so-and-so's name, and then it shows their name and the address where they live. Okay, so report cards are always great. We have documentation. I go to my 8867 page 4, more questions. As you can see, this is where I do my documentation. In this case, we're going to say that they brought in a report card. All right, so school records. If you notice, everything's gone. Now, the reason that the EIC questionnaire is so important, if you take a look, this individual gets a $5,626 refund. Okay, so 1040 page 2, $3,125 of that refund is the earned income credit. So you can see why it's so important. That's a credit that all he gets for is he gets it and qualifies it because he has a lower income and he has a child. That's why those things are so important that we ask the questions. All right? So we have that in there. So we'll kind of go through the 1040 here. We got line 7. We have Greg's income. No interest, no self-employment. So everything on the front, pretty simple. Okay? You go to page 2, we have a standard deduction. That is for head of household. If it was just him, that would be $6,300. We have the $8,000, which again, $4,000 per person on the return. We have the $231. Again, our child dependent care credit ate that up. We have federal income tax withheld. We have earned income credit. We have our child tax credit. Now that's the refundable portion because we didn't need the child tax credit up above because our tax bill's gone. So we get the $1,000 per child down at the bottom. That's where we get to $5,626. Okay, we put in the the routing number and the checking account that he wants his money deposited into. All right, and we're all set. On the New York side, we're going to go that he was living in Erie County. He is in the Iroquois School District. We'll have to look that up. Get that F1 again. There's Iroquois. All right. We have 300 there. No bank accounts in any foreign countries. Again, federal money comes right over. No adjustments. All right. Okay. And he has everything here. You can see his child credit, the dependent care. He has an earned income credit besides the one on the federal tax withheld. So he has a refund of $2,629. So earned income credit, you can see how important your due diligence is because this gentleman has a refund of about $7,800. Okay, so it's quite sizable, but most of that is credits, not tax that was withheld that he paid in. Okay, now seeing that his income is where it's at, there's a New York renter's credit. Okay, what that is line 67. So if you want to write a note there in your notes on page 184 about the New York renter's credit, that you do it on line 67. Okay, what this credit is when you rent property and pay rent, you're basically paying it to somebody that's paying property tax. So you're helping them pay their property tax. So I'm going to go into my little form here, and this is the claim for the property tax credit, better known as the renter's credit. Answer the questions. Did you occupy the same residence for at least 6 months during 2015? We're going to say yes. Did you own real property with a market value of $85,000? He doesn't because he's renting. All right. It's not public housing, so we're going to answer no. All right. And it's not a nursing home. All right. As we answer that, we keep going down, and everything looks good there. Okay. All right. And once we do that, we're on the form again. We're on the form, the IT 214. Okay, we're going to go to page 2. Has all the taxes and everything that's on it. Okay. All right. Now, for renters, enter the total amount of rent you and all members of your household paid during this. If I go into this, and it says he was paying $450 a month. So I'm going to hit F5, gives me a little calculator, and do 450 times 12, okay? Once I get that in there, and I'm going to say that all of this was rent. Okay? All right. So, based on what we put in there, he does not qualify for it, okay? So you can see all the information that we put in there. It doesn't allow him to qualify for that credit, okay? If his rent was below $450, okay, and you can see that the level of income is $18,000. So those are things that if the rent was less than $450 and he had income less than $18,000, chances are he's going to qualify for this credit, okay? Back on the page 4, we're going to scroll down here. We're going to file this return electronically. It's an income tax return. We're going to have it put into the same bank account that we had our federal. This is a personal bank account, not to a foreign country. You want to allow Esther to talk on your behalf. And we have our PEAT number for our tax return, okay? You go to the little page here, and this is the one that says that they agree with this, and they're allowing you to electronically file it on their behalf, okay? 2 down. So this one I wanted to go through because it had the earned income credit and some dependent care credit, and a little bit about the New York renters credit that we'll cover more in a later chapter, okay? All right. We're going to take 5 minutes. All right, so we're in the spinners. We have the birth date here of Mr. Spinner. And we have, all right, they're U.S. citizens. He is a principal, and she is a full-time student, okay? All right. They're doing a married filing joint return, as it says married filing joint there, okay? We have a couple of children. If you want to note in your book on 224, the birth date is a typo there. Laura's birth date should be 1997, and she should be a daughter, not a son, okay? So we have Laura Spinner, and we have her date of birth. All right, her social security number, and again, make sure you change that date of birth when you do this one to 1997 and make her a daughter. Was in the house the entire year, her child. No dependent care. Again, check the EIC, just get out of habit. As you can notice, Laura is 18, so no child tax credit. Once in the year that the child reaches their 17th birthday, they're no longer eligible for the child tax credit. We have David. As you look a little farther down there for dependents 19 and over, we have David Spinner. All right. He was born, odd enough, the same day, but 3 years difference. We have his social security number. All right. And he is a son. And even though he's away at college, he's considered part of their house, so it'll be 12 months. And again, we're going to check the earned income credit. All right, they're living in New York. So our tree on the left populated with that. We're going to electronically file. Again, B-Collect shows red, but we're going to say no on that. All right, they would like theirs deposited into a checking account. And for some reason, each one of these that entered in here is dropping the first number. Typically, New York routing numbers start with a 0. It looks like all of them started dropping the 0. 2, 4, 4, 5. Okay, so we have that. We have our taxpayer's PIN number. Again, I just use the zip code. Sometimes on the problems they have one picked for you. All right. Okay, and again, down here we put our initials in. And whoops, put our initials in. And it fills everything right in for you, and you just have to put the date in. Okay? All right, so back to our bullet points. It says on page 223, Daniel and Joanna filed a Form 1040 last year. Okay, so that indicates to me on my 1040 page 1 that they had itemized deductions. So we're going to say yes. That being said, this lights up. Okay, so if I tab down there, it says they received a refund of $348 last year. They did not receive any credits from New York State last year. Okay, what that's saying is if they received for the 2 kids a Empire Child tax credit of $660, which is greater than their refund, they would not have to pay tax on their refund. The fact that they did not have those credits last year, they have to pay tax on their state refund of $348. Okay? All right. So we have that. All right. Now, we're going to go back to 225. I'm sorry. Before we do that, Affordable Care Act. All right. So we have that. So we're going to put them in there. Okay. So the Affordable Care Act, no marketplace. Had insurance all 12 months, so no exemption. And the fact that they had it all 12 months, we just checked that first box after their name, and we've taken care of their health care law. Okay? All right. Page 225, we're going to do the interest income. Okay? So again, back to the 1040 page 1. We go down to our interest line. We open up our box. Click on our little link. Look for our Schedule B. All right, we know our Schedule B is great, but we're not going to use it. Interest goes on the B, but not on the B. We're going to go into that interest statement, and that's going to get us this little form that looks very much similar with the fields to our 1099 INT. In this case, it is from First National Bank. And we look at box 1 or 3. In this case, we have box 1. So we just have $56. Since this is regular interest, it is not a state adjustment. There was no withholding and no other exemptions on it. Okay? So we have that. All right? We're going to skip over to page 226. Okay? At the top, there's a W-2. All right? Again, we're going to go to our W-2. This one is for Daniel. So we'll check the taxpayer. We've checked the address. We're going to put our number in for our Letchworth Valley City Schools. Okay, we have his pay. All right, and if you notice in one box 1, 3, and 5, the numbers are not all the same. Well, when we put in 94, 562, 30, it puts that in all the boxes. We're going to go ahead and put his tax withholding in. All right. Okay. Now, if you look at the box 12 on this one, there is a code in it. It is letter D, and it says $3,000. Okay. That is his contributions to retirement, a 401. Once we did that, if you go back up and look at boxes 3 and 5, we now see that they are correct with the W-2. It automatically added it in for you. Okay? We're going to do no 414H. Okay? And we do see that since he's doing the 401k, he participated in a retirement plan. And then again, down below, I'm going to make sure we get that. Okay, so we have our state withholding. Okay, so we have that one. Now, if I were to need another W-2, I can do a couple things. I can go back to the 1040 page 1, but the other thing I can do is if you look right up here at the top on these white tab, it says add form or copy. So if I hit copy, it just gives me another W-2, and I can put the next one in if we had one for Joanna. All right? I don't need this W-2, so I am going to remove it. All right? So I'll get rid of my W-2. Okay? So again, I did that up above with the remove. All right? Now, next thing we're going to put in is, if you go back to page 223 and look at the 4th bullet point, it shows that Joanna won a new car at the Queen of Heaven car raffle. Okay? So that would be other income. We're not going to worry about the estimated tax payments. We'll do that at a later time. But in this case, we're going to go back to our 1040 page 1. We're going to go down to our other income. We're going to open up our little field here. Everything for this one is done on a 1040 worksheet 7, other income. All right, so I highlight that, hit OK, and what pops up looks like a whole nother tax return. But actually, it's just where all of our income that's not on a line item or is not as common goes. Okay, in this case, we are on the 1099 miscellaneous that we find on page 227. So I'm going to look at that, my 1099 miscellaneous. Okay. All right, and we're going to open up that 1099 miscellaneous. What I want you to notice right now is if you take a look at the blue box in the top left corner, balance due $85 for the federal, state refund of $800. So they're not doing too bad, okay? Obviously, everybody would like a refund, but we're not doing too bad. Now, Joanna won this car, so this is in her name, okay? It is from the Catholic Charities. Remember, it's the Queen of Heaven raffle. And we're going to put in number 4, the Catholic Charities. All right, and that is on Main Street. Okay. And now we take a look and we see this is in box 3 for other income. So box 3, we're putting $23,500, the value of the car that she won. Okay. After you put that in there, I want you to look back up in the little blue box that says Refund Monitor. They just generated a $5,181 tax bill on the federal and a state balance due of $889. So obviously, Mr. Spinner, Daniel's probably not very happy right now because he's got to pay a whole bunch of tax, but he won a new car, okay? What has happened is if you take a look at their tax return, is they have this other income, all right? It made their income higher. It made their taxable income higher, okay? So after everything, at $89,000 for married filing joint, anything over $74,000 is taxed at 25%. So $15,000 of that $23,000 car was taxed at 25%. Otherwise, all their income would have been in the 15%. So you can see how that extra income or taking something out of a 401k or an IRA can really hurt you, okay? But there's where they owe a whole bunch of money on that, okay? All right, now we're going to go back to page 225. And this is where we're going to do kind of a refundable, non-refundable credits, okay? So while we're on page 1040, page 2, we're going to go down to our non-refundable credits. And if you look at the bottom, we have a tuition statement for Joanna, okay? Line 50, education credits. We're going to go in there, check. There's our little form for education credits from our textbook. We enter that. We can see here that we have to put in. We have Joanna, and we have her social security number. I think that's actually the wrong one. I think that's for David, but that's okay. We have that in there. State University, and that is on Elmwood. All right, so we start to have some questions to answer on our 8863. Did the student receive a Form 1098-T? Yes, they did, okay? Next question is, did she get one for 14 with box 2 and 7 filled in? Well, we don't know, so we're going to say no. All right, and we're going to put the institution's EIN number in there, okay? All right. Now, these 1098-Ts, as I talked about, are not always very accurate. So this is the case where your statement of student account will come in handy, okay? The old name for the American Opportunity used to be called the Hope Scholarship Credit. So, did they receive this credit for 4 years? We stressed that 4 years is it, okay? We're going to say no because we don't know, all right? Next question, was a student enrolled in at least half-time or at least one academic period that began or is treated to begun in 2015? If you look at her 1098-T, excuse me, her 1098-T on the bottom of 225, take a look at box 8. Box 8 states that it had to be checked if she was at least a half-time student. This case, because we check no, all right, it kind of disqualifies her because it says go to line 31. So this means we know she's not available for the American Opportunity. The other thing is we know she's a grad student, okay? So again, everything goes right by there. Lifetime learning credit, she can have that. We can put up to 10,000 in there. So we're going to put 8286, and then she would get 20% of that, okay? All right, so we're doing better. We got our tax bill down. Now, we're going to go to page 227, and we have David, who is an undergraduate college student. Well, we already have 18863, so I'm going to use page 2, use my little copy form, and I'm going to put David's name in there. And we have David's social security number off that form. And he is going to, oops, sorry, got the wrong number in there. Okay, and he is going to the local community college. All right, that is on Southwestern. All right. Okay, we have a 1098. We don't know if he had one for last year. And we're going to report here that the EIN number for local community college. All right, so we have everything there. Okay, so Hope Scholarship, he hasn't claimed it. We look at his 1098T, the box is checked. He's at least a half-time student. He has not completed his first 4 years. On the little bio sheet back on page 224, it said he's a sophomore, so he's in his first 2 years. And then we must ask the odd question, but I guess this is part of it. We have to ask if the student was convicted of the felony for possession or distribution of a controlled substance. So I guess this question is if your student or son is a chemistry student and they are doing extracurricular, then they probably won't get this credit. As you can see, since we answered these questions and the ones, he does qualify for the American Opportunity. Off his 1098T, the tuition statement there on page 227, it shows $8,700. But if we look at the qualified education expenses, it says do not enter more than $4,000. So we're going to enter our $4,000, even though our tuition we paid is greater. Gets rid of our lifetime learning, okay? So we have everything there. Now, as you notice, we did a pretty good job putting a dent in that money that's from the winning the car. So Daniel's probably going to say to Joanna, why don't you and David stay in school if you're going to keep winning cars? Because those education credits are very good, okay? So let's go through our return. We have their wages. We have some interest off our 1099 INT. Because we do itemize, we are paying tax on our refunds. We have our 1099 miscellaneous. There is the one for the car, so that pushes our income up. Because it is other income, we don't have to worry about any self-employment tax. It's not like the other one with the non-employed compensation. Taxable, we know that there are some items there with mortgage interest and other things that we could have itemized, but at this time, we're going to do that later, so we're just going to leave it as standard. We have our exemptions, $4,000 for each of the persons on the return, so that's where 4 times 4 is 16,000. We have our taxable income. Again, because of the amount of tax that's in the 25, pretty good tax bill. You can see, however, that the refundable portions of the lifetime learning and the American Opportunity do eat up a considerable amount of our tax bill. Down below, we have our withholding. We have the remainder of the American Opportunity, so we have pretty good payment. So when it's all said and done, $1,663. Not bad considering we paid some college tuition and want a new car, okay? This one for electronic filing, if you check yes, what it allows you to do is a little ACH form you see on the tree on the left, pops open. You can have direct debit on any day that you want up until the deadline of tax taken out. The 2210 we'll cover later when we do other taxes. This is determining if there should be a penalty for you not paying your taxes during the year. And anytime you have over $1,000 balance due, you have to complete that form, okay? All right, we're gonna go to our New York resident income, okay? So we have here, if we go back to our bio sheet, they are living in Erie County, in the Amherst School District, okay? And if we go to our little square here for Erie County, Amherst is 719, okay? All right, so we have that. No money in any foreign bank accounts. All right, we go to our last page here. See, we got our balance due. All right, we're going to electronically file this and our tax return. All right. And on this one, same thing. You can do electronic. In this case, we're going to mail the governor a check. All right. We have that you'd like to talk to Esther about this. And we have our number there. Again, electronic filing form. Okay. Now, if we take a look down here, this is the education credit one for the state. So we'll see, this might help. It says, did we do an 8863? If you look on our tree, that was the form we did for education. We're going to say yes. Now we got some questions to answer for each one of these. Is the student claimed as a dependent on your New York State return? Well, she is not a dependent, okay? And it's not for undergraduate, so she won't qualify for this credit on the New York side. David, however, is a dependent, okay? And he went to the local community college, all right? So we're going to say this was for undergraduate. And if we remember from his 1098T, he had $8,700. In this case, you can put it all in, okay? All right, so we have that. If you look on the tree on the left, there's a page 2 to this form. What this is you can see that the credit we get. Down here below on box 8, we could claim this as an itemized. If we claimed it as an itemized, we'd still owe $889. So sometimes it helps to itemize the tuition. In this case, we're going to claim it as a credit, so it lowers our balance due to $527. Okay, so that's a way to alternate between the two. All right. So we've just completed 3 returns. All right. And I'm going to come back to everybody here. Anybody have any questions on anything? I know it's a lot. Like I said, I've been recording this, so I'll be uploading it and send everybody the link. A couple other links are coming out for 13 and 14. And I did get the clip finalized for the discussion last night to kind of review the chapters. Okay. So everybody seems to be doing well. Going forward, this is kind of how we'll do things. We'll do some little recaps of the hot topics as far as the reading material from the textbook. Really not going to go over the quizzes in case nobody's discovered it. The answers to the quizzes and the exercises are at the back of volume 2. Okay? So I'm going to let the secret out now after you spend all this time trying to do all this homework that if you look at the back of volume 2, your answers are there. Okay? Problem answers, I don't hand out. Okay? We might send some out later. Right now with the problems, I don't want you to get so focused on the refunds matching the answers as much as I would like you to make sure that you are focusing on understanding getting problems in the right forms and putting the numbers in and understanding how the form works. That's far more important at this state than if you got the right refund number, okay? Nobody's going to be mad at you at this point because you're not filing the refund for real. So we can worry about that at a later time, okay? All right, any other questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
I was just wondering, just on that thing, when I was looking at the workbook that says that we have to turn in, so we need to turn in these ones that we went over. We need to actually go through these.
As we get along, there's some of them I will have you send in to me. There's some of them that I like to see just because they might have some unique forms or unique things on them. Right now, I'm going to pick some of them out that have that, and we'll kind of go through them together so you can see them done. But as we get a little farther along where we're going to do multiple things, we'll turn some of those in. But for right now, they'll stay on your computer. They auto save, or you can save them to your jump drive. I know I have a jump drive on the way for you, so okay.
Oh, okay. Did you? I don't know if you saw my message, but the post office managed to somehow lose that one that you mailed me.
Yeah, somehow they ripped the envelope open.
They were desperately sorry. I was real sorry too.
No, yeah, well, at least the postmaster apologized to you, I guess. That's good.
Yeah, really.
After you ripped open your envelope, so, okay.
There you go. So do we need to send you the quiz things this week, or Yes
Yeah,
or no?
if you can just submit the quizzes, what we have you
Okay.
working on, 13, 14, and 17? Yeah, 13 and 14 and 17, okay?
Okay.
Saturday, I'll send out an email, but for you that are on here, this Saturday, we're supposed to go over 13 and 14. We did a little bit of that already. We'll probably do some reviews, so we might talk a little bit about Chapter 7. So just go ahead and read Chapter 7. Don't get overwhelmed by Chapter 7. It is capital gains. It has a lot of stock terms, a lot of investment terms in it. If you don't understand it, that's fine. I'm going to hit the hot part of it and do a little bit of a problem to show you the important parts, okay? So don't get too caught up in all the investment terms, all right?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure,
I
Liz.
don't know, maybe this is for later, but I noticed whenever we're doing the EITC things, it always talks about when you're doing the proof of, you're going through the checklist to protect yourself, basically. How do they know, or do you go through this later? How do they know to bring in a school record or something from the doctor that shows the child lives with them? I've never seen that. They usually, working with VITA, they always just brought in their photo ID and the social security cards, and that was pretty much
Well,
it.
that can be too. If they have a social security card and something, but by right, you're supposed to have something that proves, residency and relationship. Birth certificates, if they're bringing those in for the kids, obviously may have an address and the parent's name on along with theirs. They used to allow you just to say previous client in the other, because if it was somebody that had already established identity for the kids with you, you could do previous client. You can't do that anymore. And basically, we're protecting us as far as tax preparers, and we're protecting them. If we do this form correctly and we have everything on file, then there'll be no question for them to take a double look at their refund with the earned income credit, and they'll get it in a timely manner.
So if someone didn't have proof of residency with them for the child, they should probably send someone home to get it, basically?
Yeah. What we do is we scan them in at the offices, and if it's a new client and they don't have anything to prove the identity of that child, the relationship, or the residency, I need something. I'm just protecting them, and obviously I want to protect the credentials of our preparers.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Once it's scanned in, we have it in the database, and that as they return, and most of them, they've gotten in the habit now, because this is the second year that we've done that, was last year. They know. They come in with their little pile of report cards for all their kids. So
great. Okay then.
All right.
You know the value of that, believe me.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, we just don't want to put any preparers and compromise credentials. So.
Yep.
All right. All right. If there's no other questions.
Mr. Live?
Yeah, go ahead.
I still haven't gotten a thumb drive or jump drive, whatever you call it.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Yeah, let me put this. Is this Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay, Cheryl, let me put one in the mail to you tomorrow, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I got a couple extra here. And as I found out with Liz, you heard that, I put them in a bulletproof envelope because for some reason they turned them open. So, all right, let's.
Will that allow me to save the finished tax forms? And
yeah, you can save them on the little thumb drive.
Okay, so I can look at it later.
Save them within the software and on your computer. But, if you want to back them up to your thumb drive so that they travel, you can do it that way too.
Okay, thank you.
And let's see, Elaine, we have, is there homework due on Friday besides quizzes? No, not at this time. Because we did the problems here, we'll get up and we'll probably have some more problems for next week, okay? All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to end the meeting since the World Series Game 7 is on very shortly. I'm very torn with this. I have a very good friend who is the radio announcer for the Indians, but I also have a uncle and grandmother who passed and in their lifetime never saw the Cubs win a single thing. So I am going to be pulling for both sides and watching it for entertainment's sake. All right. Enjoy the night. I'll send out a reminder, but we're going to do 9 o'clock on Saturday We're going to move up a little bit. I have something midday, and we're just going to move it up a little bit. So, but I'll send out a reminder, and then about a half hour or 20 minutes or so before, I'll send out the Zoom to everybody. So have a good night.
Thank you too.
Thank you.